Okay, we are now live on YouTube.
You're on lately.
Excellent. I'm just waiting for my magical clock to click over to 6, since I've got the accurate one staring me in the face. Some awkward seconds until. All right, here we go. Welcome everyone to the Lincolnville Select Board meeting. It is January 9th. And obviously I am not feeling well, and I've opted to stay at home and use wonderful technology so as not to be that person. And so I'd ask for the board's consensus at this point to have our vice chair run the meeting, since he's in the room and can see everybody better than I can, and I will just participate and be on mute most of the time so I don't bother you with this. So does that sound good to everyone? I can't, it maybe just a yes would be great.
Sounds good.
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right.
I don't know if I want to do that.
Tough vice chair. Well, I'm going to hand it over to you. Thank you, Kern.
Absolutely. I hope you feel better.
Thank you.
Lately. Again, welcome to the Lincolnville Select Board meeting. It's a little after 6 p.m. Monday, January 9, 2023. Before we get going, Mike, could you read the quote?
I will gladly. People invest in attractive places until they are no longer attractive. Lloyd Erland.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
I'm gonna, think on that.
First item on the agenda, Citizens Forum. This is for non-agenda items. Anybody in the audience would like to come to the podium, identify yourself, and tell us what you got.
I'm Cindy Dunham, and I am here with my Heart and Soul hat on, and I want to tell you about an event on February 5th that's going to be held. It's going to be the official launch of the Heart and Soul project in town that the town is supporting, and we have gotten the grant that will be matched with the town funds. And so we're going to officially launch it on that Sunday afternoon, February 5th, from 1 to 3 p.m. at the school in the cafeteria. The goals for that day will be to create awareness, let people know a little bit more about the project, and start to help those of us that are, I guess, your official ad hoc committee and others figure out more about what, to deepen our understanding of who lives here, who's our community, and to start to really broaden the number of voices that we have coming to meetings and just to be heard. We're going to have some interactive activities. We're going to try to answer 2 questions. What do you appreciate about Lincolnville, and what do you wish for the future? We're going to have food. We're going to have childcare. We'll give transportation to folks if they would like that, if that would be helpful to get people there. And so one of the first things we would like to do to broaden the number of voices and to recognize the town support would be to ask one of you to be introduce the day. So people will come in, they'll do a couple sort of an interactive activity and have a little snack, and then sit down and sort of have a little bit of an explanations of things, but to just kind of welcome that and bring people together. David has said that he would do it if absolutely necessary, but we both agreed that it might be better if one of you folks did it. And Mike's already on the committee, so I might prefer someone else, but
Thank you.
so I don't know if you're allowed to talk during your citizen forum, but please think about it anyway.
Thank you very much, Cindy.
Thank you, Cindy.
Next item on the agenda, the administrator's report.
Administrator reports that he would like to have somebody step forward for the heart and soul. No, sorry. Just a reminder that dog licenses all expired at the end of the year. And the grace period that you can take advantage of and not get the late fee goes to the end of the month. You know who you are if you haven't licensed your dog. Let's get in here and do it, please. The other is, although it's also on the meetings and announcements, just to make people aware that there's a special town meeting to be conducted on Thursday at 6 p.m. in this very room. The warrant is available here at the town office, posted in the normal spots, public and conspicuously throughout town, and it's on the town's website. Please come, 6 o'clock. That's all I have beyond the agenda.
Thank you, David.
Yep.
Next item on the agenda, meetings and announcements.
All meetings are here at the town office unless announced otherwise. The planning board meets on Wednesday, January 11th, 7 p.m. Conservation Commission is scheduled to meet Thursday, January 12th, 4 p.m. That they're encouraging the public to come and attend. It's a beginning with habitat presentation that I know they've worked diligently on. The special town meeting follows on Thursday, January 12th, 6 p.m. The Financial Advisory Committee is scheduled to meet Tuesday, January 17th at 10 a.m. And the Select Board meets next on Monday, January 23rd, 6 p.m.
Thank you, David. Are there any other meetings and announcements that might have been omitted or may not have made that list? All set? Okay, next item on the agenda, upcoming community events. Doesn't seem like there are anything pressing coming up. We'll move on. Meeting minutes, two meetings that need to be approved, discussed and approved. First one being the meeting that happened on December 27th, 2022. I would entertain a motion.
I move that the board approve the December 27th, 2022 meeting minutes as presented. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? No discussion. We'll have to keep
Sorry,
Yes.
I have one small, not necessarily correction, but on line 314, it says it has to do with the appropriate of those funds, and I think appropriate use of those funds. So to add the word use on line 314.
Okay, thank you very much. Would you like to amend your motion?
Yes.
No? Yes. Oh, yes, yes. Do we want to second the amended motion?
Happy to second the amended motion.
Yes, okay. The motion has been amended and seconded the amended part of that motion. So is there any discussion? We'll have to do a roll call vote. Select Board Member Dunn, what's your vote?
Yes.
Select Board Member Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Select Board Member Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
Select Board Member Hand, what's your vote?
Yes.
And my vote is yes, the motion passes. The next, looking for a motion for the January 4th board meeting.
I move that the board approve the January 4th, 2023 meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? No discussion?
One item, the top of it should be, instead of December 27th, it should read January 24th, line number 3.
Who took those minutes? Oh, wait, that was me. Oops.
Yes, it should. Okay.
I'm happy to amend my motion with that change.
Motion has been amended
Second is Terry.
and seconded.
Yes, second.
Okay, and there's no other discussion? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Select Member Dunn, what's your vote?
Yes.
Select Member Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Select Member Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
Select Board Member Hand, what's your vote?
Yes.
And I will abstain. I did not attend that meeting. Thank you very much. The next agenda item, Lincolnville General Store liquor license renewal application. I believe we have a representative from the Lincolnville General Store here for questioning or interrogation. Does there anybody have any questions or any reservations? Any questions for the representative?
I do not.
I just have a question for David.
Yes.
Does page 11, number 5, does that need to be completed? I'm assuming there's only one owner. So list the name and addresses for the title of officers, directors, managers, and the percentage ownership of any person listed.
Should, and did I not see that someplace else in here?
Unless I missed that
Well,
somewhere
that's the
else.
manager listed. We will make sure the applicant completes that prior to picking it up.
Okay. I think that was the only
What one was that, Josh?
page 11 out of 11, number 5.
Yeah, it should fill that.
But besides that,
Okay.
I'm all set.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So David, you will make sure that that gets,
If the board is satisfied with that, I'm sure.
you're satisfied with the rest of the application?
I am, yeah.
You all set over there lately? Okay.
No, she's talking,
You're
talking,
muted.
but she's not talking.
Yeah, just with the exception that there's intermittent use of the business entity, like there's the name, but not the LLC component throughout the application. It's in one or two places, but I guess I'd prefer to see that LLC consistent throughout the application.
Okay, so we'll make sure that that is consistent prior to the signature process.
We will.
Okay, if everybody is good with all of that, I would entertain a motion.
I move that the board approve and sign the liquor license application submitted by the Lincolnville General Store.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? No discussion? We'll take a roll call vote. Select Board Member Dunn, what's your vote?
Yes,
Select Board Member Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Select Board Member Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
Select Board Member Hand, what's your vote?
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion passes. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next item on the agenda, item number 7, Lincolnville Sewer District Property Acquisition Follow-Up. Steve, you asked to have that put on the,
Thank you. There's a lot of topics down there at the beach area that I feel are important for us to keep front and center. One of them being the potential of an agreement between the sewer district and the town regarding the property where the old sewer district was located. I know we have a letter to them and awaiting their response, probably coming later this month. There's ongoing parking issues at the beach that it would be nice to find ways to resolve, and this may be one of them. There's been ongoing years past discussion about improvements to the boat ramp. And there's been some concerns recently with the demolition of the old plant and the rocks put around the property down there, where I received several phone calls from users of our waterfront concerned about why those rocks were located where they were now. So I just wanted this to be front and center for us as a group as we go into the next month or two here, as we get a response from them. I guess lastly, there's even I'm not suggesting anything, but I think we should at least be thinking about it, is should the sewer district even be an independent from the town? It's a big issue, but it's one as we look at the whole situation, we should be taking into account.
That's a good point. Thank you. Are there any other comments, questions lately? Anything that you would like to bring into that? If
I
the
guess
board-
only that, we very anticipatory of their response to our letter to them and opening up a dialogue. Like the letter says, I very much would like to get us all in the same room and open up that dialogue in a more constructive way than we've been able to have thus far.
Absolutely, that's another very good point. If the board so desires, I'm told that there is a member from that area that would like to address the board and just bring a few things to the table for consideration. If the board is okay with that?
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
Rick, would you like to come to the podium and introduce yourself and spill it?
I'm Richard McLaughlin. I'm the owner of McLaughlin's Lobster Shack. I bought the property in question, and I think the town should acquire this land by whatever means necessary. First of all, we have a parking problem. First comprehensive plan committee, I was on that, and that seemed to be the front and center issue down there. And I want to bring up about the rocks and why people might be upset about that. Back in 1979, my father purchased that property. It was part of the overall McLaughlin's Lobster Shack. That part of the property was included in that at that time. And there wasn't enough room at the time to park fishermen alongside. I think there's 5 spaces, might be 4, but at least 4, maybe 5. So my father said, yeah, go ahead and do it. Go ahead and park them there, no problem. If they're on our land a little bit, it's no problem. And sometime after that, some years after that, the town basically put permitted parking in there, harbor use parking. So there were official 4 or 5 spaces. This happened in 1979, so they've been parking there for 42 years. And now they can't park anywhere. When it came to my attention, I went down and tried to park my truck there, and there's no room to launch a boat with anything parked there now. So that's a change from what was there before. Obviously, the harbor facilities, I've been on the harbor committee a number of years too. And that piece of property will never come again. And you've got trailer parking problems, you've got regular parking problems, you've got an inner mooring field where there's a waiting list. You could be inventive with trailering boats there. If you couldn't have a mooring, you could trailer a boat there. And floats and inclines can be stored there. It's really, right next to the boat launch. Boat launch could be expanded. So a lot of things would be done there. Another item, the city sewer district asked for $190,000 from the town during that process when they were trying to get things together. And that's $19,000 a year that the town is putting into this to pay for the interest on loans. I think it's a Department of Agriculture loan for $200,000 that we're covering the interest for 20 years. 10 years rather, I'm sorry. And during those presentations, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's 3 people who were here for those presentations. They made it sound like the town might end up with that, it was going to, or probably would. That was my inclination at the time. I could be wrong, but that's the way I felt about the presentations and how they were going about it. As a member of the former sewer group, we sold them that property for $40,000. Hey, that's way less Like, my family had $500,000 into that whole operation. And they didn't pay much money for it. I know they had to demo it, but they knew that from the very beginning. So the price would be low, I would think, you know, if we sold it to them for $40,000, and that includes all the piping all around the beach that they were able to use on the new system. All those force mains all over the beach. The sewer district has installed a parking lot in there. It's in there right now, and they just built it in the last week. And they intend to go into the private parking business.
Did they tell you this?
Yes.
Okay.
I had conversations with Catherine over it. She wanted me to move the telephone pole, and I tried to move it, but the options weren't there, so I couldn't do it. And that's what they want to do. They've already installed the parking lot. My attitude is they should stick to sewer, worry about processing sewage, and not try to get in these other businesses. And I know that when they presented, they gave everybody a prospectus of what they might pay. Mine's mine's doubled, over doubled of what they said I would pay. I expected it, but that's what it is. I mean, they need to concentrate on sewer. Last storm just before Christmas, the property has not been riprap. That should have been priority number one. They lost at least 100 square feet of land, washed out into the ocean in that big storm before Christmas. So it really needs to be taken care of before it's gone. And the town could do so much more with it than a private corporation. I assume with the DEP rules and everything, the town could do a lot there. And a private corporation really can't do that much. The town is not going to have an opportunity like this again. It's going to be, if something isn't done about this, then it's just going to go on and you're not going to get the property, once they start making revenue or whatever they plan to do. So I think it's important to the townspeople more than it is to the sewer district trustees. They don't have any skin in this game. It's not costing them anything, and they don't lose any money if the property goes to the town. I also want to point out that the trustees made this decision by themselves. They did not approach the members of the district. So those are my reasons why I think the town ought to do it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Certainly very informative. It's nice to have someone attend that can put history to what's actually going on. Certainly appreciate it. Next, is there any comments, questions, or concerns on that before we move on?
Well, yeah, back to Steve's point. I know that they will be meeting after we meet next time. But nevertheless, at our next meeting, I think it might be a good idea if the board were to try to decide upon how long we want to wait until we hear from them or approach them. If there's that kind of momentum that we want to get going, given that what Mr. McLaughlin just said may be happening, we may want to approach them sooner than later. And if so, do we want to pick a date?
I did speak to Chris Nickerson recently. I was talking to him about the reopening of his restaurant here in the coming weeks, and he did mention that this is number one on their agenda for their next meeting at the end of this month, and they were planning to draft a response to us, but it would come in early February, most likely.
Good. So we expect to hear something.
Thank you.
I was wondering if we had heard anything from them yet.
That's the only thing I know.
That's okay.
Lately, do you have anything? All set? Okay. Right, so we'll move on. Next agenda item, review draft winter road maintenance, request for proposals. David, do you want to speak to that, or
Sure.
Mr. Roundy, or both?
Both or neither, but I'll start. We are in the 5th year of our 5-year winter road maintenance contract with our current vendor. So we've put together, David and I, a new request for proposals that would be follow the town charter and advertise and seek people to, or entities to provide this service. There's a lot of verbiage there and whatever else, and I'm not necessarily looking to wordsmith it, but if there was some overarching goals that we didn't get to that you'd like to see, or if you want to wordsmith it, we can spend all night, picking apart my grammar skills. And David and I, obviously, we want to do what the community's expectations are. And if the community wants to tell us, there are a few community members here, but certainly the elected people representing the community are here. So this is looking forward. This would be what would start anytime it snowed after July 1 of this year, because the current contract goes through June 30.
David, I did have a question. Was there any consideration, or was there even a conversation, or maybe not, of the vendor and or contractor switching to them supplying the salt sand? Or
yes,
instead of the town doing that?
We've actually included that within this draft to eliminate or minimize, I won't say eliminate, minimize perceived or reality difficulties between a vendor supplying us the sand and then another vendor putting it out on the road. Okay. I think David, I won't put words in his mouth, but he'll shake his head or one way or the other or come to the podium if he disagrees. I think we saw a benefit to the community to have a vendor for the work. And then it just minimizes potential headaches.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions, Steve?
I looked through those briefly. I didn't really see them there. How do we instruct the contractor to plow or not plow, sand or not sand during a given event? Being there, currently they're running 4 trucks oftentimes. The same trucks going down the same section of road before they branch off, and they're both got their plow blades down or stuff. Those are the types of questions that are coming to me as I talk to folks around town.
We don't, well, with limited exception, we don't tell them the means and the methods. We do agree with the current contractor on they made a proposal 5 years ago on what they could offer for equipment and manpower. We do, everything depends on the storm. Every storm is different, unfortunately. Wet snow conditions requires a contractor to be out earlier than dry snow conditions, because as you can imagine, if it's a dry snow and somebody drives down the road 30, 40 miles an hour, the snow blows off behind them versus wet, packs down. We also have provisions in the agreement regarding notification. They aren't required to be notified by us, but if we, the town's representative or the town administrator or another official or a law enforcement agency says, "Where are you?" they have a response time to be here within I believe it's set at 30 minutes.
That's what I saw.
Yeah. There's a reasonableness test to it, and everybody's definition of what's reasonable can be somewhat different, and hence the reason you have this in front of you.
Okay, is there any other questions, concerns, or? Do you have anything lately? Yeah.
Yeah, well, David kind of already brought it up, but to jump off of Steve, the section 4 in the maintenance requirement on page 7, it's more for my edification. I think the description in there is pretty darn clear, but just so I know, is it largely accepted amongst plowing professionals, the delineation between what is wet and what is dry snow? I know it's a little splitting hairs, but I'm just curious.
I don't know as that really exists, and as you know, you could be at Lincolnville Beach in a rainstorm, and you could be on High Street in a blizzard,
Right.
and it varies throughout. I mean, a lot of this is a judgment call, and unfortunately, you can't write a specification that covers every instance, I guess is the best way to put it. And it does require some judgment on behalf of the town's representatives and the contractor. Primarily, a common sense approach says wet is sticking to the road and dry is blowing off the road when a car goes by. But hopefully we don't get to the point where we have to attempt to litigate that, and we have a vendor that's responsive and out there after the first flake.
You have a question? Yes. For either one of the Davids. I guess, to the best of your knowledge, is there anything major, are there any points in this draft agreement that really deviate from what other towns typically offer as draft agreements for plowing? I mean, is this out of the norm we're looking at, or is this within the norm?
Certainly, I think it's within the norm. Towns are required to have roads safe and convenient for travel. Now, every person in this room and every person in every town in the state of Maine would have a different definition of what that means. But this is, I believe, within the norm. Certainly the sand is within the norm, the sand spec, because when we incorporated it in here, we actually, David was kind enough to do some research and get some others to make sure that we weren't asking for anything unusual. Plowing, I think maybe David might walk right up to the podium and tell you that in some of his previous lives, he's actually been in charge of or participated in plowing other communities, and he's going to tell you if it's outside what he thinks the norm is.
Hi, my name is David Roundy. I'm the Public Facilities Director for the town of Lincolnville. David and I went over this contract with a fine-tooth comb. I think the two major changes that we made from the intact contract to what we're looking for in the future was a couple of items that stick out the most to me. One being that we are looking to actually hold a contractor for the sand deliveries to us, who we purchase from. We're actually going to require testing 1 week prior to delivery so that we know exactly what we are purchasing, even if it's going to be them placing the material. We want to know that it's a clean, good product without rocks or too many fines. So we're looking for a test from them, and then we've put in there a clause that we're going to, at our expense and our whatever frequency we would like to do, is maybe do a couple of tests of our own as it's coming in. So I think that's a good positive thing. With regards to, you can't tell each truck driver when to start, when to stop. Contractor needs to take some responsibility on that. But another clause that David and I have put in this contract, our request for proposal, is what is your means of identifying when deployment should start? I think that we're asking, are you going to have somebody here if there's anticipation of a storm an hour before it starts, so that we know we're not getting caught short of people not being on site? I think Mr. Hand asked, with regards to routes. Right now, nothing being broke down and everything being perfect, there's 4 trucks doing an event that's something more than minor, and they each have a 10-point something size route to get our 54 miles of town. This fall and early winter, there's been a lot of interaction with David Kinney, myself, with the contractor because of the nature of our storms we've had so far. They've been rain at the ocean, 4 inches of snow at Maslin, so there's a wide range, and there needs to be some flexibility on what we do and how we do it and when we do it. We've had examples of muddy roads, so we can't plow, even though it's snowing a little bit, but you have to wait, and if it freezes, you need to get that off and get some sand on it. So it's a storm by storm deployment of assets. It's going to be ongoing for forever. David, as David mentioned, fortunately or unfortunately, I've had the equipment and plowed 4 different towns myself with my equipment. I've worked for companies that has the equipment, and I've overseen the deployment of our trucks to those towns. And now I'm on the town side of receiving those services. So with David's experience and mine, I think we're probably doing as well as any other town that I know. There's nothing unique what we're doing or nothing unique that we're not doing. It's one of the biggest expenditures that we have, and it's something that needs to be managed storm by storm.
I think one of the things that has changed over time, it isn't reinvent the wheel when it comes to plowing towns and this and that, is that today's townsperson doesn't stay home.
Right.
They need to be on the road. They don't, they don't stay put until the storm is over. They got to be in the middle of it. There's no concern about not making it to their next destination. So that's why it generates a lot of, I'm not going to say unwarranted complaints or unjustified complaints. Unjustified, I guess, is the word, but it's brought on by what it is now. I mean, how many cars do you meet? I mean, I'm not out at 1 o'clock in the morning, but I know there's a lot of cars out there, and storms, it does not matter to people anymore. And it's a crapshoot.
From the contractor's side on this, it is. It's frustrating because as David mentioned, in this town, you can be 40 degrees and 33. And I believe you're correct, Kern, that people are just in a hurry for everything they do in life. And it takes 2 or 3 or 4 storms, I think, for tires to be changed over and for people to start to slow down. It's difficult, but I do know with David and myself that it's of an utmost concern that we're doing the best that we can do every storm. And is that perfect? No, because there isn't a perfect black and white solution to Maine winters and road conditions, but you're exactly right. If people would slow down or choose not to go out in the middle of the storm for something that's non-important, that would be, yeah.
Thank you, David.
You're welcome.
I have a question for David.
Oh, go ahead.
So in your experience with all the towns you've worked with, has there been a mechanism for residents to notify the town or the contractor of a road they feel is not getting attention?
I believe that's occurring here right now. And one of the challenges with that is I live almost 40 miles from here and drive through 7 towns. I make it home and here through storms because 30 miles an hour is more prudent than 50. Some people, what they feel is not acceptable is acceptable if you're prudent and use common sense. But it's different for if 10 people went down 2 miles of snowy road, you would get different responses if it was a phone call to you or a phone call to me. And there really isn't. I know we have the town Facebook page. Some people speak and their opinions on that. And then sometimes we get phone calls here, either directly to David or me or to one of the ladies in the office. And when we get a phone call, me usually get in my vehicle, go and take a look at, so that I know what I'm talking about when I talk to the contractor, whether it's our current one or a future one. I do know that the contractor himself, the one that we have or one that we have in the future, has to take some ownership of being out and traveling around and communicating amongst their people to make things the best they can be, which isn't always perfect in a snowstorm. I'm sure you're all aware of that, but it's important that people have the ability to voice their concern and that we take it seriously and take a look at what's going on and see if there's something that we can do better.
So I was wondering, let's take this most recent storm as an example. Were people calling either one of you after 5 p.m. About the storm?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And okay, and so what was your process for determining if you thought it was necessary to pass that along to our current contractor?
Depending on when they call, it may be a visit to that location. It might just simply be a text message to the contractor to say we received a report that High Street slippery, or wherever the comment and concern was. And from that point, it works down the chain of command. I mean, it starts with us, goes to the owner of the company or to the foreperson for their company, and then to the drivers. We don't necessarily communicate with each driver. We want the driver to stay on the route that the driver's on, unless if there was a fire, let's say, and fire chief reached out and said, the road, Belfast Road's slippery and we got trucks and we got cars and whatever else, we can make that communication faster and they'll pull somebody off a route. But typically, the way the routes are set up, somebody should be around on that route within an hour and a half or 2 hours.
Okay.
Some roads receive a little bit more attention. Steve talked about before, 2 trucks going by. Sometimes those trucks have commonality in their route, so to speak. And we don't necessarily like the fact that they're both putting their plow down, but on the same token, we don't want to call somebody saying, well, the plow truck just went by and it's snowing like crazy and the plow's not touching the ground. It's a no-win situation. We don't pay by the storm, we pay by the season, we don't pay by the cutting edge. It's by the season, and there's no reason necessarily for have 2 trucks go by, plows down, but on the same token, if it's a commonality of the route loop, better to have them down and plowing than not down and getting a call.
Okay. And then I just have one last thing, and I'm curious what the board thinks of this idea, and both David's, of having I guess a different or more standardized way for residents in the middle of a storm event to notify the contractor. Something like, and not to the drivers, but to the plow contractor, a number they could call or text and say, hey, I have this my road is covered in ice and we haven't seen you in 3 hours. Do we think that's overkill? Could that be a good idea? Would we want to include something like that in the contract? Because right now, it doesn't seem that efficient that they have to reach one of you two.
They don't.
Okay.
They do reach us, but they don't have to.
Yeah.
If the office is open, they can call here.
Yeah.
if anybody has a public safety concern, you can call Waldo County Dispatch at 338-2040. They have direct contact with our contractor. We had an example last week where Sleepy Hollow, as usual, it's always in Sleepy Hollow, ice is up first. I don't know what it is about warm moisture coming up from the shore and cold air going down the valley. And that is the, well, not always, but that is the vast majority of the time the first place that has a problem. And I happened to read about it on Google Group because I was still sitting in the office when it occurred and reached out to the contractor. But I would encourage anybody, if you're traveling the road and you encounter an unsafe condition, the fastest mechanism to affect change is 338-2040.
Thank you.
And for the benefit of anybody that's coming up the road behind you.
Lately?
Yeah, I guess I would just caution the board against confusing contract negotiations with putting out a request for proposals for respondents to a potential opportunity for a contract. So, we're sort of having a broader conversation than is necessarily applicable to what we're to offer thoughts or insight to the Davids on right now.
Okay, is there any other comments, questions, concerns? Okay, I'd like to come to the, Thank you, David.
Thanks. As most of you know, I live on a dirt road, and I have the privilege of not having to go out. I can go slow more time. But the question I have is, I remember being at some meeting, Kern, when you were talking about whether there was possibility for different kinds of salt sand mixes for the gravel roads, since the salt stays in there all year round.
I asked the question, I think I remember that. I asked the question of how do we identify between sand that goes on dirt roads and salt sand that goes on pavement?
Yes.
And I believe the town administrator's answer was a hot load is salt, mostly salt, that goes on the paved roads. And there's not supposed to be a lot of salt put on the dirt roads.
We actually have a provision in the contract that gravel roads are not to be salted. Winter sand, which we have one building, one big pile, we put 100 pounds per cubic yard of salt to sand in that. The primary purpose for that salt is to keep that sand pile from freezing. Frozen sand doesn't go into a hopper. It doesn't come out the back in the spinner and go on the road. It has to have a quantity of salt mixed in with it. Lincolnville, I would say, is on the low side of the amount of salt we put in that when we stockpile it, compared to some of our neighbors. But we've had good experience with that.
Yeah, there's always going to be a little bit of salt in it, obviously, because of what David just said. We got to keep the sand light. I mean, it's got to go through the sand. But a hot load, meaning a load of salt, is not supposed to be going on the dirt roads.
Thank you. Thank you. You've answered my questions.
Mike, your friend's coming back.
Yeah, I know.
Anything else, Lately? You're all set? You're all set? Okay. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next agenda item. I would like to ask the board if this is something they want to consider. The information on this particular topic did not make the deadline. It has been forwarded to all of us, have not had time to look at it. It does not look like much of a document, but what does the board think about that?
I guess the options are either take a moment to read it tonight and we can discuss it, or we can put it on the next agenda for 2 weeks. The challenge for me is if we postpone it too far, June's coming. I just know it. And we need to hopefully advance this in a timely fashion, although I wasn't real happy that it showed up this afternoon.
Okay. Lately?
Yeah, what he said, basically, you know, it's not a lot of meetings, amazingly, between now and June. And while it's really disappointing that it took them as long as it did to respond, the proposal they've offered us is, you know, for consulting services to wade through the task that we've asked them to assist us with is not insignificant. And so with that in consideration, and the fact that this is sort of a trial run with a relationship with them, you know, if we are to consider entering into some sort of membership with this group, it seems like a really excellent opportunity for us to give it a trial and see how they can deliver on what we've asked them to do.
Okay. Is there any?
I agree with Lately, and I'd also like to point out, and I'm sure you all noticed, they're charging us half price. That's a good thing. At least I think, well, that's the way I read it. It's a little bit unclear, but
Okay.
even though we're not members, they're still charging us half.
David, what would you be looking for? Do you need
I'll give you a motion that I'm making up on the fly. I think I just moved to have the town administrator engage Mid-Coast Council of Governments to do the LD 2003 proposed ordinance amendments as presented. Whoops, Lately's waving her hand.
I would, sorry, I have to change screens. I'm not super clever on this stuff, so let me pull it up real quick. There's 2 lines in this that I think the board should recommend changing. There's line 2, that because we don't have a functional land use committee right now, that we recommend changing that to either the select board or the planning board. and then, sorry?
select board? You want that to go to the select board?
Yeah, and then item number 5, proposing via referendum ballot rather than the open portion of town meeting would be my suggestions.
Okay.
And if that's the case, we'd save an extra $104 or 52, something like that. Yeah.
Depending on the scale. Yeah. So that's just those simple changes.
Okay, with those changes, could I have a motion? There's what David said.
Can you do it again?
Sure. I would suggest the board move to have the town administrator engage with the Mid-Coast Council of Governments to provide the Lincolnville ordinance review with regards to LD 2003, with the draft proposed change to be presented to the Board of Selectmen, and that item number 5 be dropped should the vote be taken at referendum versus open town meeting.
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Is there any more discussion for that item to get this moved along? Okay, no discussion. We will go back to our roll call vote. Board Member Dunn, what's your vote?
Yes.
Board Member Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Board Member Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
Board Member Hand, what's your vote?
Yes.
And my vote is yes. The motion passes. Thank you, David. Next item on the agenda, a broadband update. Josh or Steve?
There's no update. The broadband committee is no longer active. And I haven't met with David yet, but I will before our next meeting to polish up that draft
Okay.
of the new charge,
Okay.
as well as submit proposed budget for next year.
Okay. Lately, are you all set? Okay. Okay, we'll move to the next item.
Can I ask a question of the board?
Yes.
You had at one point made that a standing agenda item. Since the committee no longer exists and there's no charge to anybody, can I strike it off the standing and so Josh doesn't have to say,
Please.
we don't have anything? You don't have anything?
Makes sense.
Get rid of it.
Okay.
Okay, next item on the agenda is an abatement, but before we move into that, I need a motion.
We'll move that we suspend our meetings as select board and that we convene as the Board of Assessors.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? No discussion. We'll go to roll call vote. Board Member Dunn, what's your vote?
Yes.
Board Member Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Board Member Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
Board Member Hand, what's your vote?
Yes.
And my vote is yes. The motion passes. Okay, so David, do you want to?
Sure. Apparently Flick International operates under multiple names and reported the same things to us twice. So they've got 2 tax bills, but they only have 1 set of equipment here in town. And so the assessor's agent is recommending that Flick International be granted an abatement in the whopping amount of $15.70, so that we'd have the record correct and they wouldn't be double billed because of their own error.
Thank you very much. With that being said, I would entertain a motion.
I move that the board grant abatement number 2022-06 to Flick International in the tax amount of $15.70 to correct an assessment error.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay, we'll go to a roll call vote. Board Member Dunn, what's your vote?
Yes.
Board Member Garrettson?
Yes.
Board Member Ray?
Yes.
Board Member Hand?
Yes.
And my vote is yes. The motion passes. Okay.
I move that we adjourn our meeting as the Board of Assessors and reconvene as the Select Board.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? No discussion? We'll move to a roll call vote. Board Member Dunn, what's your vote?
Yes.
Board Member Garrettson?
Yes.
Board Member Ray?
Yes.
Board Member Hand?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda, authority to post roads. David?
Typically, you have this discussion a little later in the winter, but there hasn't been much of a winter as yet. And we've had a fair amount of rain and unfrosty weather, and we have concerns that the roads may need to be posted sooner rather than later. And the only way we can post those roads is if the board gives us the authority to do so. And so we're asking for it now so we don't get caught. Hopefully winter will decide to set in. I do enjoy winter, but I haven't seen it yet.
That makes a lot of sense. I would entertain a motion.
I move that the Board of Selectmen, that the Lincolnville Select Board authorize the road commissioner and/or the public facilities director to post the roads for weight limits as either deems to be in the best interest of the town, and to remove said posting when the roads can once again properly support the loads.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? I do have one question, David. Do we have any roads that have succumbed to some damage, or?
No, but there were a couple of days where we were thinking we were getting close, and if it had rained or any more or stayed warm, they were getting soft.
Yeah, okay.
And
Right. I'm glad we're doing this sooner than later.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move to a roll call vote. Board Member Dunn, what's your vote?
Yes.
Board Member Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Board Member Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
Board Member Hand, what's your vote?
Yes.
And my vote is yes, the motion passes. Next item on the agenda, select person updates. Josh?
I have no updates.
You got nothing? Mike?
Yeah, I misspoke last time when I said that the MMA LPC committee was going to meet January 6th. We did not meet.
You were there, they weren't.
No, I was waiting to be told to be there, and they never told me, so maybe they had a party without me, I don't know. But no, it didn't happen.
You're very diligent, appreciate that. Steve? I've got nothing. Yeah. Lately? Yeah, I got nothing here. Okay, we'll move on to our next agenda item, treasurers and payroll warrants.
I move that the board approve and sign the treasurer's and payroll warrants.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? No discussion? I do have a question. Claddagh Motel.
Dental assistance?
What do we got going on down there?
We've assisted a resident of Lincolnville with
Okay,
temporary housing.
okay. That's all I needed to know. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, if there are no questions, we'll move to a roll call vote. Board Member Dunn, what's your vote?
Yes.
Board Member Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Board Member Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
Board Member Hand, what's your vote?
Yes.
And my vote is yes. The motion passes. Is there anything else that may not have made the agenda that someone may need to discuss before we go into our final item on the agenda?
Yeah, yes, there is. I forgot to ask David a question during his administrator's report.
Okay.
All right, if I ask it now, that has to do with something that's in the packet in our little afterwards, having to do with MMA guidance on.
First Amendment audits?
Thank you, First Amendment audits, yeah. Have there been any, or first, have we shared MMA's advice or language to the town staff?
We have.
Okay. Have there been any problems, burdens on the staff?
No, we have not had a individual or anybody else come to do one, but I am familiar with some communities that have. So thought we would make everybody aware of,
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
just
Yeah.
continue on doing what you normally do and things will be all right. And
It was great information.
yeah.
Helpful, thank you.
Thanks.
That's it?
Yeah.
Is there anything else? Lately, do you have anything else before we go into, okay, our final item on the agenda, executive session, property tax abatement due to poverty and/or disability pursuant to Title I MRSA Section 4056F and Title 36 MRSA Section 8412E. I would entertain a motion.
I move that the select board enter into executive session for purpose of discussing possible property tax abatements due to poverty and/or disability pursuant to Title I MRSA Section 4056F and Title 36 Section 8412E.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? No discussion. We'll move to a roll call vote. Select Member Dunn, what's your vote?
Yes.
Select Member Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Select Member Ray, what's your
Yes,
vote?
yes.
Select Member Hand, what's your vote?
Yes.
My vote is yes. We are in executive session. Thank you very much.